All right, thank you, Giordano. Giordano. He could just be kind of busy defending his country in the midst of a lot of tension and conflict. Hey, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Portland, Maine, and good morning in New England. Good morning beyond. Thousands of you listening, streaming each morning, and we appreciate it very, very much. Beyond our metro region. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J. Doc on the boards. Beautiful Tuesday out there. Kinda like yesterday, marathon, Monday down in Boston. Red Sox got, let's just say, shut out by J-Dog's Guardians, yesterday, during the early game. Beautiful day today, sunshine, gonna be into the 60s again. Beautiful weather, a little breeze this afternoon, but enjoy it. Got a packed show for you, so buckle up. I'll just always once in a while, I like to give you a heads up. We got a full show for you. We're gonna pull away from the gate here and get you out in the tarmac and up in the news talk air. Pretty quickly, talk about homelessness in the state's largest city of Manchester. We have the Mayor Jay Rouet on live to kick off the show. That second congressional district getting kind of interesting from a political point of view. Senator Becky Whitley, who's been on this show in the Concord area, jumping into the second district, Colin Van Ostern. So it's kind of the insider establishment versus the more progressive, active grassroots or out there in the trenches race. We'll have more on that. We're going to also hear from an author this morning, preserving New Hampshire's loons, the loon population, very precious part of the state. Bruins end their season tonight at home, and the Red Sox, of course, going against Cleveland. Will have that game for you on the Pulse. Day two, Donald Trump in trial in that so-called hush money case in New York City. Day two, we'll come back to that. Isn't it interesting in Manhattan? It seems like it's a new TV series underway. It's not Blue Bloods or Law and Order. It's just let's have a bunch of trials with Donald Trump. There's no one else to prosecute in New York City for crimes. Just an observation. We'll come back and talk about all of the above. We're going to start, though, with a newsmaker out of the gate this morning. The mayor of Manchester, state's largest city, Manchester, Jay Rouet. Manchester mayor, good morning. Beautiful day out there. You know, you can't it's pretty hard for anyone to not understand there's a problem with homelessness in the state's largest city. It's not just Manchester, of course, but we see probably more visibility. You're coming up with a unique plan. We wanted you to talk about this, talking about a selling or a sale of surplus city-owned lots for affordable housing. Mayor, can you kind of walk us through this? How many lots have you identified? More than 20? Well, now, we know the outgoing mayor, Joyce Craig, running for governor as a Democrat, but you were involved in the city before. You came in, you won this race against a pretty well known Democrat, trying to work to do something. Is the homelessness situation or problem exceeded or about what you thought your expectations coming into office? And Manchester man, before I let you go on a separate subject, the last time you were on, I think you were talking about the need to reform bail in the state's largest city. And we have this debate. I heard Mike Pomp in our news talking about a state at the state house, a similar subject, but you had some numbers that were a little bit mind boggling to me on the number last year of repeat criminal offenders who had been bailed out and then picked up again. Where's that at in terms of because we're hearing this and we're also hearing it with sanctuary cities around the country with folks who break the law. But in your city, what's the latest on bail reform? Manchester man Jay Ruway live. Good morning, Hampshire. The Pulse of H. Thank you, Mayor. All right, take a quick break. We'll come back and update you on some of the other news talk. Tension's still pretty high in the Middle East, certainly behind the scenes. Will Israel, what will the strike be? Will it be limited for that rather large, more than about 350 missiles shot into into Israel from Tehran and Iran, actually mainland Iran, and Israel waiting to see if they're going to respond. And of course, we're watching this closely. It has global implications, certainly on a lot of things. As we get going this morning, we'll also update you. Day two, Donald Trump in court as if they have nothing else to do in courts in Manhattan, but get Trump in there. Probably good for ratings, certainly good for ratings on CNN and other outlets. And a little bit later on, an author from Preserving Loons, a great book in an effort here in the Granite State, and public radio, public television, a little bit under fire after a former editor talked about the liberal bias in the network. Not sure why that's a surprise. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Edge back in a few. Interesting. Interesting in Manchester. Really trying to. This mayor's got a lot of energy. Speaking of the marathon yesterday, it's kind of like a not a sprint, but he's out of the gate trying to deal with homelessness. So we'll see where that goes. Certainly a problem you see in our not just Manchester, obviously in Concord and Seacoast communities a lot. Too much homelessness. Too much homelessness. Want to touch upon one story as we get going this morning. We'll talk about that second congressional district. Democrats now. Senator Whitley from Capital Region jumping in. This is a seat that Ann Custer held for 6 terms. She's not running again. Colin Van Ostern has already received her endorsement. It's almost like the establishment of the Democrats is teeing up to back Van Ostern, but Senator Whitley's been in the Senate battling some of these key issues as a pretty passionate Democrat. Some would even say more on the progressive side, but she's out there. She's running. It's going to be interesting. So I don't know if you heard a story about this. There's a national public radio whistleblower, Yuri Berliner, I guess is how Berliner. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, like Berlin, but with ER, claims colleagues confidently agree with him about broadcasters' hard left bias. Well, this, I don't know why. I don't know why this, we have some breaking news out of the Middle East in a moment. I don't know why this is a surprise to anyone. NPR, this editor blew the whistle on the broadcast overt liberal bias, saying he's heard from colleagues who have quietly agreed with him but can't go public because they don't want retribution for their careers or their criticism. He was an award-winning business editor and reporter for his 25 years at NPR. And he said he's getting a lot of support from colleagues. But here's what's interesting. This should not be a surprise because, locally and nationally, although I do think Laura Canoy, J-Doc, help me out. Her exchange, Canoy. Laura Canoy, I knew her years ago. I thought her show was excellent, The Exchange, for many, many years on locally on NPR. Laura's, I think, a real pro and had a lot of fond memories of her from my TV days when she had moved here, I think, from Washington. She's no longer doing the show. But overall, NPR, nationally, locally, it should. It's like saying, wow, Ivy League colleges are liberal. Big surprise. There's no surprise there. But the key thing that you need to remember is it's taxpayer funded for the most part. And that's not really talked about much, but it is taxpayer funded. So, you're not really asked as a taxpayer, do you support this? And that's sort of and as a broadcast, someone who's been in broadcast my pretty much off and on my whole run, I do think, and I look at our Binny Media, it's a privately held company. It's very, very well run. It's profitable. It's smart. It's nimble. It's entrepreneurial. It's a privately run company, and again, it's run like a real business. It is a business, and we're able to do great things in the community to support, like our May 15th Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count. That's commercial free for 12 hours. Tremendous sponsors, by the way, but the model is one of partnership with our sponsors, our advertisers, and you, our listeners. But the company has to pay its bills. They have to pay the light bills. They have to pay the bills, the employees, the healthcare, the salaries, the cost, everything, licensing. I mean, all the stuff you do as a business, and NPR, gets, I don't know the ratios, but they get taxpayer funded money, and then they'll do their auctions and raise money, or I guess you can do corporate donations, but it's not. It's technically advertising, but technically taxpayer funded. So I always just felt like, wow, that's just, it'd be a nice thing to do. I mean, to get taxpayer funded money to run your business. So why should they show an inherent liberal bias in their news coverage? And by the way, there's a big difference. When Laura did her show, I think it was in J-Dog called The Exchange, and a great show, interview newsmaker show. She was doing that, even though her background, and I'm dating myself here, because there was also Laura Kiernan. She went to work for years with the state Supreme Court when she stopped. But Laura had come here. She was on my show a lot. And then Laura both, I think, from out of Washington. I may be wrong. But when you're a journalist, you're supposed to report the news, not be a political activist. When you're a journalist, you're supposed to report the news. So Laura's show on the Exchange, she was being more of a host, but she could do whatever I mean, I think she just was a great talent and a good professional. I really do. But I remember years ago, J Dog, truth be told, when I came here from my earlier show, I'd been here before and then came back to a great home here at Benny Media. I remember reaching out to Laura. I don't know if I ever told you this, because you know how we have great partners on our show, like Mike Cody from the New Hampshire Business Review, New Hampshire Magazine's coming up at 10:30 today, 10:35. And I said, Laura, it'd be really fun to have you on my show once in a while talking about the Exchange, because I view it as good for everyone, you know, not really direct competition. I don't know when the Exchange used to air. I think it was the best show they had on locally, by the way. But again, I'm a fan of Laura's. Haven't seen her in too long, but I was. So she said, yeah, it'd be great to have you on too. And then she got back to me and she said, very nicely, classy as she is, and was, powers to be don't really like it because your show's a little moderate. You know, you're known as a sort of a fiscal conservative, even though you have Democrats on. So they're all in on the left. And the question really is, that should not be a surprise, because that's like saying the political science department at Columbia University is liberal, or Harvard. The difference is, though, NPR is taxpayer funded for the most part. So there is now that this editor who's respected 25 years has come forward and just verified how much the editors and the powers to be were behind Democrat office holders and perpetuating their agenda. It basically, the question is, should the taxpayer funded part continue? But that's just some observations and commentary. Switching gears, you heard in our national news as we let off this sort of this incredible high stakes next step between Israel and Tehran is really serious stuff. And I'm just going to tell you this. As much as the war in Ukraine is with Putin and of course, neighboring Poland and NATO and the concerns there and what's already happened in Ukraine and the war, the situation in the Middle East is very, to me, different in the sense that it from a missile escalation point of view, this thing is very, very fragile and tenuous. No one really would benefit per se from a broader escalation between Israel and Tehran, but it certainly affects a lot of things like shipping in the region, stability in the region, other interests, other powers to be, China, the United States. I mean, this is the stuff that should have your attention. No disrespect to a lot of the other chatter and crap that really doesn't matter in the long run. This is the stuff that should grab your attention. Even if we're all overwhelmed and stressed in life, pay attention to this, because you have this sliver of this existence with Israel and all the surrounding countries, Arabic countries, and Israel defending herself against Hamas, Hezbollah, and the proxies of Tehran. You've heard me say repeatedly, Tehran is the puppet master directly of the Middle East. They fund. Hamas doesn't do anything, including the attack on October 7th, without the green light from Tehran. Hezbollah, Syria, the proxies in Syria, terrorist organizations all around the Middle East funded by Tehran, with one goal, by the way, to obliterate Israel. One goal. That's the Hamas goal. And these so-called free-loving anti-war protesters in Chicago, they have no idea, because they don't know their history and they don't read what Hamas's goal is in life, and that's to obliterate Israel. They don't know what the goal is here. And the original October 7th attack, by the way, as I pointed out on my show here, just some of my past time studying the Middle East, time at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, as a civilian going to the National Security Seminar, I believe, and I can almost go and prove before a jury, that Tehran greenlighted the Hamas attack, which was years in the planning, years. The underground system, the tunnels, the system. They went in to the villages, the kibbutz in the areas, and they slaughtered as many Israeli children and women and raped, and the most violent, evil stuff you could imagine. The worst attack really ever on Israel, like our 9/11, and in terms of the terror attack in New York and the Pentagon and so forth, 9/11. So Israel went through this and then retaliated, as Hamas knew, and Hamas ran right back into Gaza. They went right into the areas and they drew Israel in, because they knew that after that period of the pause of a few weeks for hostages, which is still a question mark, that Israel would come and retaliate. and Netanyahu is serious about this. And then you just had that 350 missile strike from Iran into Israel. So now the question is, what does Israel do? How do they respond? And there's an interesting story from one of our generals, and it's just very astute. There's no doubt that Tehran's embarrassed. They fired 350 missiles and drones into some were ballistic into Israel, and Israel's iron shield and the air defense was able, with the U.S. and other allied help, was able to shoot down every one of those. So the question is, does Iran surprise Israel by shooting something bigger and stronger, maybe with the help of Russia, that could break through that iron light, the shield, the air defense shield of Israel, and the that's scary because the weapon might come from Russia. So now you have Russia accountable if that were to happen. And does Israel strike? And then do you have a bigger war in the Middle East? Now I think that's what Tehran wanted when they greenlighted Hamas to go in on October 7th to kill the Israeli, mostly women and children in the schools, rape the young girls on top of bodies of their friends who had already been raped and assaulted. And people, it's amazing. Like these people yesterday, or wherever, the video in Chicago, they forget, they don't. You talk to most colleges in America, they don't even know October 7th happened. Here's the point: serious tensions. Keep an eye on it, and that's why Netanyahu's been quiet, because he's probably calculating what kind of limited strike they can do and how smart it can be. But Tehran is the problem in the Middle East. There's no question, and they are the big power. They are they, by the way, they're flush with cash. Iran is flush with cash, in part, and this is ironic. How asinine is this? In part because of U.S. policies, and in part, if you look at our energy policies in this country, we've even indirectly helped fuel Putin's fight in the Ukraine by making natural gas so damn hard to get. And Putin's made a ton of being the gas station for that part of Europe with higher energy prices. He almost had a no lose proposition by going in and invading and fighting Ukraine. He's going to make more money from Moscow, more money to fund his war, and our energy policies have played right along into that. But that's just ironic and sad. All right, some commentary, 603-228-2080. When we come back, Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, that second congressional district, Democrats getting very interesting. Back with that on the Pulse of an Age in a moment. Hey, before we begin, it's not in his pieces from his media outlet overnight. I want to hit you with a couple of unexpected ones. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, NHJournal.com. Big shocker, right? That editor with NPR talking about inherent liberal bias. Hey, another one is Manhattan legal system. The only stuff they go after is it Donald Trump? Is that the only? Are they the only legal cases happening in Manhattan? That's it. That's it. All there is. All right, Michael, that second congressional district getting quite interesting because the Democrats have a real sort of philosophical battle on their hands between the main people running now for the seat that Ann Custer's held. Well, you have another interesting article, Michael Graham. Extremists on the left, not the right, extremists on the left emerging in the Granite State and locally. So this is local, not in Chicago, not New York City, locally. Groups out there over the weekend chanting certain things that basically equate to, obliteration of Israel. On Saturday, there were some folks that basically vandalized the cars of, according to your article in the New Hampshire Journal, Republicans attending the state convention. And this is far left stuff, basically calling for, basically death to Israel, almost glorifying the martyrs, but talking about some things that most people have agreed is anti Semitic behavior, but it's getting more on the violent side. And this is not like Justice Department investigating far right wing groups. This is far left side, almost militant stuff right here at home. What now? There was, I guess, they could say Palestine protesters at the State House in Concord, New Hampshire, denouncing Israel. And Michael, to you and most people with half a brain, what does "from the river to the sea" mean? Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea. What does that mean to most people with common sense? What does that saying mean? What? What? Right. And maybe people should read the covenants of Hamas. Their number one goal as an organization is to obliterate Israel. Hey, what happened to the billions of dollars in the prisoners swap that Qatar or Qatar? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate Michael Graham and HRL.com. Thank you, Michael. We get back Doug Tengden with an economic look from our worldmarketadvisors.com. Top of the 10 o'clock, Anna Brown, Citizens Count, nonpartisan, bipartisan group looking at a legislative update. We're going to hear from the Guyton Group this morning on some great financial thoughts now that we're post tax filing day of yesterday. Mike Cody, New Hampshire Business Review, New Hampshire Magazine, giving us an update. A little bit later on, interesting story. Glenn Knobloch is the author of a great story about our loons, preserving our loon population on our lakes right here in the Granite State. Precious part of our population. Interesting, by the way, I saw after I watched a great like espionage CIA movie last night. I did go. The Bruins were playing the Caps, and a lot going on. But I did later on take a break, and it was just on Netflix. A Walk in the Woods, Robert Redford and Nick Nolte, the movie goes back. It's about an author based on an author's book of a gentleman and his friend who basically at a later age in life attempted to hike the Appalachian Trail from Georgia up to Mount Katahdin or up to Maine and didn't get that far. But great story of them. They went pretty far, but just their experience together as friends going on the trail. And what's interesting, the New Hampshire connection is Redford in the movie and J Dog Emma. I'm trying to think the name of the actress who plays his wife, Thompson. I think her name is Emma Thompson. They live in Hanover, New Hampshire. So he starts his trek in the movie from Hanover, New Hampshire, a walk in the woods. Pretty interesting. All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Doug Tangden on deck next. Right. All right. Welcome back. Coming up in the 11, Glenn, a great story of an author who's written a book about preserving loons in New Hampshire, the incredible loon population, how precious and wonderful it is. So we'll have more on that. Doug Tengden are with an economic look at world from worldmarketadvisors.com. Doug, before we get into the economy, I thought because one of the shows I watched a little bit last night was that movie, A Walk in the Woods, Robert Redford, Nick Nolte, and it's a lot of it was looks like it was actually shot up in Hanover, New Hampshire. Well, it's a good story about life, and I like the relationship he had with his wife, and it all ends well. But it was just a good, it was a good, fun, good movie. All right, what's not so fun is trying to understand this economy, resiliency, resiliency, but, and now I'm starting to really question: Are we going to see a little bit of a downturn, summer and fall, more than an upturn, especially if the Fed doesn't lower the rates a quarter of percentage point? Because I know things are still too expensive. Well, it's interesting you mentioned geopolitical, and I'm really acutely attuned to what's going on in the Middle East between Israel and Tehran because the next steps could be actually very concerning to more people. You may think it's far away. Why do you care? Watch what could happen if things escalate because it affects everything from shipping in the region, in terms of getting in and out. It affects energy prices big time. And if Russia ever backstopped Tehran and we do more to support Israel, and who knows what China will do, this thing could change our local market in a pretty quick minute. Right. Well, what I worry about is Russia getting Tehran because in Tehran that didn't go over too well. All 350 missiles being shot down by that iron shield that didn't go over too well. No, I know his allies. I understand. Hold on. No, no, it was big U. No, that they didn't do that alone. That was U.S. We had other allies and one in the Middle East. My point is, though, that didn't go over well in Tehran. So, regardless of what Netanyahu does, what I worry about is Russia giving them a bigger type weapon that might be able to break through the air defense system. Yeah, right. Do you think the Fed will lower rates a quarter percentage point in June or not? All right, Doug Tankton, I appreciate it. And our friends from worldmarketadvisors.com. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I don't like to overly worry. I do believe, and you see the politics. Senator Marco Rubio was criticizing Joe Biden coming out of the weekend after Israel and allies and the defense was able to shoot down all of those incoming missiles from Iran, saying that Biden leaked his phone call with Netanyahu, congratulating him for shooting all those down to cover his own, political backside with his base, who doesn't like the administration for being so pro Israel. So I look at our military presence, our carrier fleet, our carrier force in the Middle East. We have people. I guess it's okay to. I'm not betraying anything here. nuclear submarine presence in the area, all realizing that Tehran is the problem. Talk you talk about the proxies all day long, whether it be Hamas, Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon, or proxies in Syria, in Straits of Hormuz, all the area in the Middle East. It's all Tehran. So our heavy presence there is to send a very clear message to Tehran. Now, Russia does have their hands full with the war in Ukraine. However, Russia is very closely aligned with Tehran. So the next steps here are definitely worth watching. I'm not an over worrier, but I'm not an under worrier because I'm realistic of what's at stake here. And and then Tehran must get a great degree of joy when they see, in my opinion, misguided folks here. It's one thing to talk about ending the war in Gaza to save lives, innocent lives. When you start chanting death to Israel, Israel's the enemy, Israel's a terrorist state, then you got some human rabies going on, and that's a little bit, you might as well line yourself with Hamas at that point, in my opinion. 603-228-2080. We'll keep an eye on that. Coming up, though, Anna Brown, Citizens Count, talking about some legislation here locally. And we have a lot coming up in the next hour, so don't change a thing. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of Nature. Reminder, May 15th, my 10th annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals, vetscount.org. We go 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for our veterans. Less than a month to go. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for our veterans. We're looking for your support and involvement. Less than 1% serve 330 million very entitled Americans. Let's take care of our veterans. You've heard me say, if we can't take care of our veterans, we don't have much business taking care of anyone else. May 15th, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Nice Tuesday weather-wise, back in a flash.